The Crypto Markets Update is presented by Grayscale, the world's largest digital currency asset manager. Let's have a live look at Bitcoin. The CoinDesk Bitcoin price XVX index currently trading at $48,740. Bitcoin is up almost 7% over the past 24 hours. The CoinDesk Ether price ETX index is now trading just under $4,000, but still ahead about 5.7%. The DFX CoinDesk DeFi index is at 410 points, trading up 2.1% for the day. Joining us now to discuss the crypto markets and more is Gary Vaynerchuk. So VeeFriends, the NFT collection created by you, Gary, reaching a market cap of over $500 million. Unbelievable, according to World Coin Index. The floor price for a VeeFriend NFT is 9.5 ETH, or just over $38,000. I remember when you launched VeeFriends in May, there were a lot of technical glitches. You had to delay the launch. It wasn't a smooth ride. So describe to me why it has achieved the transaction volume market cap it's achieved today in such a short amount of time. Is it because of the product, or is it the Gary V brand?
I think it's the macro market, right? I think first you have to recognize that the whole space is very high. We're in that kind of 95 to 99 internet stock place where things are just very expensive as an overall market because there's a lot of demand and supply is now catching up to that demand. But at the tippy top, the top projects, there's still a lot of demand. And so I think first it's a macro NFT year. That's number one. And I think number two, it's my track record, with 20 years of building successful businesses, whether it's Resy, the restaurant app, selling to Amex, or Empathy Wine selling to Constellation, or VaynerX, my holding company, being a $250 million a year revenue business, or building my dad's store, or being a good investor, or building a big profile, or writing 6 New York Times bestselling books. I think the success of my career is something that a lot of people are betting on.
Gary, of course, you've accomplished all those things. You've conquered a lot of media. But where are you learning NFTs from? Who are you listening to? I think this is a question I've asked perhaps before, but nonetheless, is there somebody now that you're following and listening to, and you're learning about NFTs because everybody has to learn about it somehow? Is there somebody you're following and listening to?
The beginning of what is it even this was more of 17 and CryptoKitties. I bought Ethereum a couple years before that. I understood the very top level concept. December and January was a lot of Discord reading, NFT 101, YouTube watching stuff like this, just very basic work. Since February, it's not about listening to anyone, it's listening to everybody. What I do for a living and have always done for a living is really be a strategist, an anthropologist, a consumer behaviorist. And so hours and hours of reading different Discords and reading Twitter and just watching consumer behavior. I'm not looking for somebody to recap what's going on with the consumer to me. I'm looking to do that work myself. So it's, countless hours of watching how people react to Wolf Game, to Bored Apes Next Thing, to Cool Cats doing this, to Doodles doing that, going to Art Basel and listening to conversations, watching the market from a math standpoint, but more importantly, watching the market from a qual standpoint, the way people talk, the way they react. Why did this Adidas thing happen? Here's CloneX that. I am day trading information, gathering thoughts, and then really doing my homework on the artists or the operators. I think one of the great misnomers of this NFT space is people are like, the community, the community, the community. Well, listen, Bulls fans were an unbelievable community in the 90s until Jordan and Pippen were gone, and then they sucked, and then that community cared less. When I first got into Web 2.0 in 2004, 5, 6, 7, and I went to San Francisco, there wasn't one person in San Francisco that even knew the Golden State Warriors existed. A funny thing happened to that community when they were good. So the communities are great, but they only care about the floor price going up and pumping the bag. This is a game of the operators. Who's the artist? Who are the operators of the IP, and are they capable over the next 2 decades to build brand and demand?
So, Gary, I don't think a lot of people expected for NFTs to blow up as much as they did this year, right? I mean, it's been building for a while, but this year, like the explosion, I think took a lot of people by surprise. And you are known for, having a good crystal ball instinct. So what are you looking at for next year? Like anything that's not on the mainstream radar? I mean, specifically in the crypto world. I mean, what do you see blowing up next year?
I think photography NFTs have a real big shot of being the breakout. I think this was the year of the PFP, of the character, an adjective and a character and a group, and away we went. I think photography is brewing. I think the other thing we have to look at for 2022 is, will this continue, or is just going to be too much supply against the demand? You hear Coinbase and Instagram talking about scaled NFT platforms. You look at an OpenSea like an eBay, you look at those two entries as a scaled game. It's going to be very fascinating. There's still a lot of cynicism from the 30, 40, 50-year-olds. There's incredible subconscious understanding for under 20. So there's a lot there, but I think the overall theme is the market right now is predicated on a lot of greed and a lot of financial incentive in the very short term. Every single Discord is asking its founders, do something to pump the floor right now. And so we're in day trading mode, which I think is incredibly dangerous. And so what I'm going to look for in 2022 is this going to be the year where kind of this hyper bubble pops? And then to me, that represents April 2000 with internet stock. To me, NFTs are forever. It's going to, completely continue to evolve into all parts of our lives, ticketing, memberships. We know smart contracts can do a lot more than just be collectibles. What I'm really watching for is the moment to go buy the 10 or 15 projects I most believe in. And I'm not doing that right now. I'm doing that after the inevitable little recorrection, because I do think there's too much short-term behavior in the marketplace.
So, Gary, I'm sure a lot of people are listening very carefully to your predictions. So can you just clarify for a second, why photography NFTs in particular? Why do you foresee those blowing up in 2022?
I think people collect things. I think people forget how much money is spent on collecting, and when people say things like, this is stupid, who collects, a JPEG, as they like to say, I always laugh. I'm like, when I look at the person's account, they collect sneakers. Like, why would you pay $3,000 for a pair of sneakers? They collect art. Like, why is it good to spend $8,000 or $15,000 on a picture you hang on a wall, but not on an NFT? They collect sports cards. They collect marbles. They collect all sorts of things. People collect photography. There's some incredible photography NFT projects out there. And, I think people like Justin with Twin Flames and others are really charging. I can see it. I can see the demand kind of building a little bit. And you see in the collectible world, the last 30 years, you see it go from sports cards, then to comics, then to toys, then to video games, back to cards, you kind of have these little cycles. And I think, how many more character-based PFP projects does this market need, right? We've gotten to every animal and every adjective. So I think that becomes fatigue, and then people become fascinated with other things, that I see enough smoke in photography that has me intrigued.
Awesome. All right, Gary, we got to wrap. But before we do, another thing to look forward to in 2022 is VeeCon. Do you want to say a quick word on that before we go?
You're very nice. I think one of the things I'm proud of with VeeFriends was I used the smart contract. Every VeeFriend comes with a ticket to VeeCon, which is a conference I'm throwing in Minnesota in May of 2022 at US Bank Stadium. And it's a 3-year conference ticket. And yesterday we announced a bunch of the early speakers, people pleaser, Kevin Rose, many, many others. And I'm excited about it. And I think it's going to be a very meaningful conference for this space and entrepreneurship and creativity. And I can't wait for it.